And a very warm welcome to Barcelona. It all comes down to this. 2 races this weekend to determine the destiny of the 2016 International GTOpen title. We've spent the summer traversing some of Europe's finest circuits, and now we have got plenty of action to look forward to this weekend. So, very warm welcome from Ben Evans to certainly to a very nice late autumn afternoon here at the Circuit Barcelona, Catalonia, and we have got a huge field entered this weekend for the International GTOpen to enjoy the challenge of the Circuit Barcelona, Catalonia. Unfortunately, it's a challenge that has proved too much for some, and we've lost the SF Racing, Ferrari and the Leclerc Mercedes already from various moments during free practice, but we have still got a bumper grid, not quite headed by this man, Ewan Hankey, but he starts second on the grid, hot on the heels of victory in Monza. Hankey and partner Sally Yuluk have been perennial front runners this year, but this is the car that will start from pole position. It's the orange one, Team Lazarus Lamborghini of Fabrizio Crestani and Thomas Biaggi. And Crestani and Biaggi have every opportunity to take the title this afternoon. If they finish ahead of Fernando Moyet and Gustavo Jacquemin, they will take the title. If they finish within touching distance of the BMW pairing, they will take the title. So really, it is all in Crestani and Biaggi's gift, and they have started the weekend in the perfect way with a dominant qualifying run this morning and a quite emphatic pole position. Had a great weekend in Monza, and they are looking to continue that this afternoon. But this is the driver pairing that could wrestle the championship away from them. Gustavo Jacquemin and Fernando Moyet in the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW, the sister car in the hands of Miguel Ramos. Now, Moyet and Jacquemin will line up 4th on the grid, and they're working out to overhaul Crestani and Biaggi, but success seconds and the like all come in to play. The Sporting Mercedes of Antonio Coimbra and Luis Silva had a little bit of a bump during qualifying earlier on, but is all fettled and ready to go. Moyet and Jacquemin, 3 victories to their credit this year, as opposed to just the one for Crestani and Biaggi, but it's been the metronomic consistency of the Lamborghini pairing which has really been so impressive. Well, the very stiff breeze that we had earlier in the afternoon has just eased off a little bit as the cars come to the grid. And it's a very, very high caliber grid that is forming up. So it's going to be Fabrizio Crestani and Ewan Hankey on the front row of the grid. Then we've got the Attempto Racing Porsche 911 GT3R of Kevin Estre and Petter Terting, which lines up 3rd on the grid. Estre, who we saw earlier on this year in the Garage 59 McLaren, but he will be out this afternoon in the Porsche, and certainly is going to be a factor to challenge for race victory. There is Kevin Estre, one of 3 Attempto Racing cars entered this weekend, although somewhat unusually there's 2 Porsches and 1 Lamborghini. The Lamborghini Huracan of Emil Lindholm was very impressive in qualifying earlier on, but has been shuffled down to 7th on the grid because the best lap for that car was set under yellow flags. So it's going to be a tense 70 minutes ahead, and really for Fabrizio Crestani, the best thing he can do is sit in the cockpit, go through the usual routine and concentrate on the job ahead. A good start for Crestani and the chance to stretch his legs at the front of the field is what he really needs to try and do. Kevin Estre rolls into the crowded grid area, the grid absolutely buzzing this afternoon. Another of the Porsches heading around to the starting blocks. There is the Attempto Lamborghini Huracan of Emil Lindholm. And again, a car that could well be in the shake-up for podium finishes this afternoon, because what we've got is all the new entrants this weekend are not scoring points, but neither are they blocking points. So that's going to make a slight difference between potentially the race finishing order and the championship points handed out. For Fabrizio Cristani, though he lines up in pole position, he was the class of qualifying. Ewan Hankey, though, and the TF Sport Aston Martin ran him close. Busy conferring with Sally Yuluk, and it's a driver pairing that works very, very hard on track and off it to be at peak performance. Third on the grid then for Kevin Estray and Peter Terting. Estray will start the race, and he is again just having a last-minute conversation on the grid. Fernando Monge busy discussing on the grid, whilst teammate Gustavo Yackerman, the Colombian, fully focused on the job ahead. Yackerman knows that he maybe needs to pull something fairly special out of the box this afternoon. He's more than capable of doing that. It's a very warm welcome back to the championship. The Garage 59 pairing of Duncan Tappy and Mike Benham. They missed out in Monza after a testing shunt, but they're back and on the pace. Tappy maybe felt more could have come from the car in qualifying. And then sixth on the grid for Sean Balfe in the Balfe Motorsport McLaren that he shares with Phil Keane. Now, Sean is mathematically still in the championship hunt, but he needs to win both races, and I hope that Cristani and Biaggi have all sorts of problems. Emil Lindholm, then seventh on the grid in the car that he shares with Christian Krogners. Returning to the series this weekend is Juan Cruz Alvarez, but it's Francesco Guini, his new teammate, who will start the DriveX school car. Guini, who is the TC Pista champion from Argentina. And then ninth on the grid for Miguel Ramos. This will be his last chance, 2016, to wear the number one that he claimed here a year ago in the McLaren alongside Alvaro Prent. He's stayed with the Teo Marti Motorsport team and has had a solid campaign in the BMW. He could yet claim third in the championship as well this weekend. 10th on the grid for Jean-Luc Burbelique in the AKKA ASP team Mercedes. And Burbelique alongside the very experienced Jerome Policon. Then 11th on the grid, the Solaris Motorsport, Aston Martin, Jody Fannin and Francesco Cini. They're down in 11th again. They lost their best time in qualifying for improvement under yellows. But Jody, a race winner in the International GTOpen before the TF Sport Aston Martin. That's the Antonelli Motorsport Lamborghini of Marco Antonelli and Daniel Zampieri. That could be a car that comes into the mix a little bit later on in the afternoon. Some real strength and depth in the field, and a very sizable entry as well. As the grid is cleared, the engines fired up, and then the cars will shortly be off on their formation lap. Have a look then at how they line up in full. What a front row. Cristani and Ewan Hankey. And then the same for row 2, Estray and Yackerman. And all McLaren, row 3 for Duncan Tappy and Sean Balfe. And then the fourth row for Emil Lindholm and Esteban Gini. Miguel Ramos and Jean-Luc Burbelique on the fifth row of the grid from Jody Fannin and Marco Antonelli. And now we're getting into the realms of some of the cars that could push on later on. Mauro Ricci and Alex Moisev, who's got the very quick Marco Ciocci waiting in the wings. GTM pole for Antonio, or rather second in the GTM class behind Mauro Ricci for Antonio Cornbrett, and Alex West, winner in Monza, and he will fly. Then it's Jürgen Hering and Alexis de Bernardi. And de Bernardi, very warm welcome back to Kessel Racing. And also Stephen Earle in 19th, ahead of Manuel Diodati. And then Mark Farmer and John Barnes encountered problems in qualifying. They didn't set a competitive lap time, but they will, I'm sure, feature. The cars on their formation lap ahead of the penultimate race of the International GTOpen season. It's a race that could see the championship being decided, but it's also a wide open race in terms of who is going to take the win and who is going to feature on the podium. There you see the championship position. Cristani and Biaggi 29 points clear of Monge and Yackerman. With dropped scores, that drops down to a 27-point advantage, but it really means that Mohe and Jackman need to be within 20 points of Crestani and Biaggi at the checkered flag today, or it's all over. Now, that's the Mark Farmer and John Barnes TF Sport Aston Martin. Both of them been very competitive in the British GTU Championship this year, but didn't get the running they wanted in qualifying earlier on. But good to see the car there at the back of the grid. The DriveX Audi has featured on the podium already this year. A very, very well sorted car. They've really nailed the setup of that machine, and a strong driver pairing this weekend in the form of Esteban Gini and Juan Cruz Alvarez. So that's going to be worth watching for. As always will be the progress of Duncan Tappy in the early stages and Com Ledegaard later on in the second Garage 59 McLaren as well. The Solaris Aston Martin, Jody Fannin and Francesco Cini could also feature, as could the Kaspersky Ferrari of Alex Moisev and Marco Ciocci. It's essentially a very convoluted way of saying all bets are off, but for Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crestani, it's about 70 minutes ahead. Same for Fernando Monnier and Gustavo Jackman. In terms of the mandatory pit stops, they've got to make one between 28 and 42 minutes in the race. And so those 14 minutes of the pit window being open is where the element of strategy comes into play. They all run, of course, on the control compound Michelin tyre. And we have seen in some of the preceding races today that it's a chilly afternoon, breezy afternoon. It's taking a lap or two to get the heat into the tyre. That could be a factor as well. For now, though, the field all bunching up through the chicane. And once the pace car peels away, it will be the responsibility of Fabrizio Crestani to pace the field. But he's got Ewan Hankey alongside him, then a very strong second row. Kevin Estre and Gustavo Jackman, Duncan Tappy and Sean Balfe could also feature from the third row of the grid. As they roll through the final turn, the Thunder is about to go racing here in Barcelona. We wait for the lights of the gantry to change, and away we go. And it's a brilliant start from Jackman, who anticipates the lights very well, but he can't find a gap to the middle, and instead it's Crestani who's going to lead from Kevin Estre and Duncan Tappy as they head into turn one. Ewan Hankey, the driver who's lost out, he drops down into fourth. Jackman is fifth, Balfe in sixth. Oh, and contact behind, and it is the Attempto Lamborghini of Emil Lindholm that's pushed sideways. It's been a reasonably good start for Miguel Ramos, and he moves clear of Jean-Luc Burbelic as Crestani leads. Estre second, then it's Tappy from Hankey. Gustavo Jackman can see that Lamborghini disappearing up the road. He knows he's got to try and clear the Aston Martin if he can as quickly as possible, and Jackman tries to dart to the inside of Hankey into turn five. Nothing doing. Meanwhile, Esteban Gini, Emil Lindholm, Miguel Ramos, Jean-Luc Burbelic, Jody Fannin do battle as Jackman's now got the run on Hankey and goes into fourth. Hankey kicks up the dust as he runs off the edge of the curb on the way into turn seven. They climb uphill and into turn nine. Quick right-hander and then downhill towards turn 10. There's the Mercedes. Burbelic just in behind Gustavo Jackman, also making a good start as well is Marco Antonelli. He is pushing on in the Antonelli Lamborghini as Lindholm looks to the outside of Esteban Gini. They fight over 7th and 8th. We've got Miguel Ramos closing up onto their tail, but so far this first lap, well, I'd like to say it's been reasonably clean, but a problem for Antonio Coimbra, problem as well for Alex Moisev, damaged rear spoiler, and a bit of fluid being trailed by Manuel Diodati. Sincerely hope that that's not going to put a safety car into the proceedings in these early stages. As Crestani leads from Estre, 7/10 of a second is advantage. Then Duncan Tappy trying to chase down. Oh, and that's a real shame. Alex West in trouble as well. The Monza Race 2 winner out of the race on the first lap. And indeed, in the first sector of the first lap, haven't seen what happened as Marco Antonelli looks to the inside as Jean-Luc Burbelic makes the move stick. But Moisev, West and Coimbra all in trouble. They're all much of a muchness on the grid. And so two of the cars that we've expected to come on very strong late in the race, the Kaspersky Ferrari of Moisev and the Garage 59 McLaren of Alex West, both out of the running in the early stages. And it's through turns 4 and 5 where the issue is. Antonio Coimbra fancying out the race as well. He's got damage to the rear left corner. As Ewan Hankey comes back at Gustavo Jackermann. Jackermann trying to chase down Duncan Tappy. Then Sean Balfe there in 6th. He knows that he's got Phil Keane poised and ready to go. He's also, in the form of Balfe, got no success seconds as well in the pits either, having finished well outside of the points in the second race at Monza. But after that aggressive first lap from Gustavo Jackermann, he's now got Ewan Hankey closing up onto his tail. Jackermann just runs a little bit wide on the way into turn 12, but it gives him the opportunity to get on the power a little bit sooner on the exit. Keeps the Aston Martin behind him as they head down through turn 13. Through 14 and 15, the chicane, then into turn 16 and the end of the second lap of the race. And Kevin Estre is a driver who sets the fastest lap of the race as he tries to stay with Fabrizio Crestani. Tappy in 3rd. We're watching the fight 4th and 5th. There you see the leading duo. Then it's Duncan Tappy and then Jackermann and Hankey, headlights ablaze. Sean Balfe in 6th. Esteban Gini in 7th with Emil Lindholm just behind. Clear of Miguel Ramos in 9th. Jody Fannin currently completes the top 10. Mauro Ricci leads the GTOpen class from Stephen Earle in the first of the Kessel Ferrari. So that is the current order. This is the fight at the front of the field as Kevin Estre looks to try and apply the pressure to Fabrizio Crestani. Still this section of the circuit covered with waved yellow flags. It's an opportunity there for the Frenchman to challenge the Italian, but through this closing phase of the season, the Lamborghini Huracan has just been such a nicely balanced package. And in Crestani and Biaggi, you've got two drivers who are at the top of their game as well. And in combination, it's been pretty potent. But the Attempto Racing Porsche, Kevin Estre and Peter Terting, another driver pairing with great levels of experience in GT racing, also in the case of Terting, DTM as well. And the World Touring Car Championship. So it's been a better lap though for Crestani relative to that of Kevin Estre. So Crestani's lead is going to have grown by the time they come through and complete the third lap of the race. In fact, it's going to be, I'd suggest, out to well over a second. Indeed, it is 1.2 seconds, the gap between the pair of them. And then Duncan Tappy, 4.5 seconds off the lead of the race, but reasonably secure in 3rd as Crestani sets the fastest lap. But then we've got this battle still raging for 4th and 5th. Ewan Hankey shadow boxes the inside of Gustavo Jackermann on the brakes into turn 1. But with the high amount of aerodynamic grip plus the ABS braking available to these drivers, outbraking your rival can be fairly tricky. Emil Lindholm looks to wind up the pressure on Esteban Gini, the fight for 7th and 8th. And then in 9th, Miguel Ramos from Jody Fannin. There is the Solaris Aston Martin, and Fannin has got Marco Antonelli in 11th place, the first of the Antonelli Motorsport Lamborghinis as well, tucked up behind. So still the recovery of Antonio Coimbra continues. Takes away a potential overtaking opportunity for Ewan Hankey. Makes life a little bit easier for Gustavo Jackermann, but for Jackermann already, Crestani and Biaggi are 8 seconds. Well, Crestani is 8 seconds up the road, and in terms of the additional success seconds in the pits, well, for Jackermann, he's got 5 seconds more in the pits than the race leader Crestani. There's a lock break there from Sean Balfe. Don't think that's going to cost him too much as he gets the McLaren back into order. And the Audi from the Lamborghini, one of the better battles on track at the moment. Fairly frenetic opening stages to the race, as we would have expected. Esteban Gini having to keep his elbows out as again Ewan Hankey chasing the BMW down the start and finish straight. Gustavo Jackermann can see Duncan Tappy easing away just in front of him as Hankey again shows himself to the inside line. Fabrizio Crostani sets the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 47.7 for Crostani, half a second quicker than Kevin Estre, and this is dominant performance in the early stages for the Orange One team Lazarus. Championship contender Fabrizio Crostani. He and Thomas Biaggi, they've only won once this season, but have just had a run of consistency in the podiums. Meanwhile, Stephen Earle being demoted by Jürgen Haring. So Haring gains the place, moves up into 15th. Duncan Tappy third in the Garage 59 McLaren. Here Mike Benham, had they not had to miss Monza, would certainly have been in the championship shake-up. Instead, they are looking for a second win of the year. It's out of turn 9, downhill towards turn 10. Road runs reasonably steeply into the braking zone, and Ewan Hankey again almost breaking traction as he pulls the TF Sport Aston Martin out of the bubble, tries to pressurise Gustavo Jackermann. Jackermann, though, just building on all of his experience, sticking to the racing line, focusing on corner exit, making life as difficult as possible for Ewan Hankey to find a way through. And Hankey has now fairly emphatically lost the element of surprise as well. Jackermann just makes sure he doesn't leave any hint of an inside gap, but it does mean that Sean Balfe is starting to come onto terms with this pair of cars as well, as he gets some heat into the Michelin tyres. So across the line, this completes the 5th lap of the race. We are almost 10 minutes in. Crostani leads, second place Kevin Estre, third is Duncan Tappy, fourth Gustavo Jackermann, fifth Ewan Hankey. I hesitate because Hankey challenges Jackermann, can't find a way past at turn 1 though. Sixth is Sean Balfe, seventh Esteban Gini, eighth is Emil Lindholm, and ninth Miguel Ramos from Jody Fannin. Mauro Ricci leads the GTOpen class from Jürgen Haring and Steve Earle. So that is the order as it currently is. And Crostani leads Estre by 2.1 seconds. Estre 5 seconds up the road ahead of Duncan Tappy. And then this battle a further 5 seconds back. 3 cars in the hunt for 4th. Look here, super slow motion. You can see the forces being transferred through the cars, and almost assistance from Ewan Hankey right on the tail of Gustavo Jackermann as they went through the chicane. The sister TF Sport Aston Martin of Mark Farmer, by the way, currently in 14th place. So Mark, from the back of the grid, has made good progress in the early stages. It's just running out a little bit wide there. Gustavo Jackermann prefers that wide entry to turn 12. It just gives him a little bit longer on the throttle towards turn 13. Down into the chicane. Ewan Hankey not quite as close as he has been on previous occasions, but still very, very near to the tail of Gustavo Jackermann's car. So they swing through, another lap completed. Now is Hankey going to be close enough to challenge this time around into the first turn? Sally Uluk watching from the TF Sport pit box, and this time Hankey's going to go for the move. He draws alongside Gustavo Jackermann, and the BMW driver has no option but to concede as Hankey moves up into 4th place. Jackermann slips to 5th. Sean Balfe continues to hover in 6th. He'll be onto terms with the Colombian fairly shortly as well. And now that Ewan Hankey is released, don't forget that Hankey in the Aston Martin was second on the grid. He just didn't make such a good start, but he might be able to chase down Duncan Tappy. Here's another look at the move. A very smart drive from Gustavo Jackermann. He didn't attempt to close the door at the point at which Hankey was already passed. And now the Aston Martin trying to streak away from the BMW off into pursuit of the Garage 59 McLaren of Duncan Tappy, which is 6 seconds up the road. So Fabrizio Crostani continuing to stretch the field in these early stages of the race. And could he and Thomas Biaggi seal the title with a victory? Meanwhile, Sean Balfe immediately chasing down the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW. Here's the race leader, Fabrizio Crostani. It's got Alex Moiseev just behind him. Moiseev who has emerged from the pits in the Kaspersky Ferrari, prepared by the AF Course team. And Moiseev currently splits Crestani and second place man Kevin Estre. Third is Tapi. And Tapi comes past now with a 1 minute 49.2, which is of interest because of what can Ewan Hankey do. And Ewan Hankey a 1 minute 48.9. So Ewan Hankey immediately picking up the pace in clear air, trying to chase down Duncan Tapi. Sean Balfe tucked up behind Gustavo Jacquemin. Now this is going to be quite an interesting battle because one of the characteristics of the season has been that both the BMW and the McLaren is a very well balanced package around a whole lap, but it is not the exemplar car in any one area, if that makes any sense. So it means that these are both cars that very, very quick, but very finely balanced across the whole lap. So Balfe might struggle a little bit to pick his way past the BMW. And that is going to be worth keeping tabs on, particularly as Esteban Gini and Emil Lindholm be looking to close in. So there you see what it all means for the championship. As it stands, 15 minutes into this penultimate race of the year, Crestani and Biaggi will be crowned champions at the checkered flag. Out of turn 9, down towards turn 10. And still Esteban Gini busy defending from Emil Lindholm. The Attempto Lamborghini looks to the outside of the DriveX Audi, and then Lindholm will try for the switchback, and he might pull it off here. Gini shuts the door at the last possible moment. The Attempto Racing Lamborghini hadn't quite drawn onto terms. Meanwhile, just behind, Jody Fannin is applying plenty of pressure to Miguel Ramos as well in their battle for 9th and 10th. It's always the challenge, isn't it, once you get into traffic, because these cars, through the balance of performance, are so evenly matched, to actually then find the opportunity to create the opening, make the move, can be very tricky. Sean Balfe just runs along towards his pit board, closes up on Gustavo Jacquemin as they head through the first sequence for the 9th time. The incident on that first lap between Alex Moiseev and Alex West under investigation. As I say, we didn't see what exactly unfolded there. Other than whatever happened, it's ruined Moiseev and West's chances for this race, because as in the world, they're not going to claim back 2 laps. It's Phil Keane who will take over from Sean Balfe and must fancy his chances given just how competitive the McLarens are here, and that Phil is going to be probably the quickest of the McLaren drivers in contention in the second half of the race. Colin Edegard, when he takes over from Alex West with 2 laps to overhaul, will be facing something of an uphill task. So the order is Crestani, 2.3 seconds clear of Kevin Estre, then Duncan Tapi in 3rd, 9.5 seconds off the lead. Ewan Hankey in 4th, 15 seconds off the lead. And then Jacquemin in 5th from Sean Balfe. That's the battle we've been watching. Here's Jody Fannin in the Solaris Aston Martin, trying to pick his way past Gustavo Jacquemin in the 2nd of the Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs. And at the moment, Fannin struggling to get into clear air. So swing through the chicane on towards the end of the lap. On the 10th lap of the penultimate race of the International GTOpen season. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon in Barcelona. Fabrizio Crestani leads the way from Kevin Estre, Duncan Tapi and Ewan Hankey. We're watching the battle for 5th between Gustavo Jacquemin and Sean Balfe. Jacquemin in the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW, Balfe in the Balfe Motorsport McLaren. And Sean Balfe and Gustavo Jacquemin, both of whom were in championship contention coming into the weekend, both of whom are going to be out of championship contention if they stay where they are at the checkered flag. And this a really feisty performance from Sean Balfe, hustling and hassling Gustavo Jacquemin. You can see why, because Ewan Hankey, having found a way past Gustavo Jacquemin, has been able to drive 5 seconds off up the road and into the distance. And Sean would like to be able to do pretty much the same thing, but at the moment he's struggling to pick his way past. As the Colombian driver punches downhill towards turn 10, and Sean Balfe looks to the inside, sees half a gap. Jackman tries to shut the door. That's clean driving from both of them, and Sean Balfe can't quite force the move, but he was certainly tempted there, Sean. He then kicks up the dust on the way into turn 12. Pushing very hard. We are just under 10 minutes away from the pit window opening, so that's when the strategy will come into play. I anticipate that we'll be seeing Sean coming in right at the start of the pit window as well to hand over to Phil Keane. But as Jackman and Balfe battle, it's certainly backing them in to the clutches of Esteban Gini and Emil Lindholm as well. Cars thunder down the start and finish straight, heading towards turn 1. They're 22 seconds back from the race leader, Fabrizio Crestani. And Crestani, as qualifying suggested, reasonably in command of proceedings. Kevin Estre sitting more or less on his tail, 2.2 seconds back, with Peter Turting waiting in the wings. Around the hairpin, turn 4, down towards turn 5. Again, Jackman tantalisingly would appear to leave the door open. He's not, he's just taking the wide entry as our race leader, Fabrizio Crestani, presses on his way. And Crestani, who was a little bit inconsistent the opening event of the year in Estoril, but has just got stronger and stronger as the season has unfolded. It means that there's very little to choose over a lap time between him and Thomas Biaggi. Kevin Estre launches over the sausage curb into the chicane, bounces the Attempto Racing Porsche back to earth, and then accelerates out of the final turn, down the start and finish straight. Headlights ablaze for Kevin Estre, hard at work at the wheel of the Porsche. Can see his quarry ahead of him. You can barely see in the background Duncan Tappy, but Tappy in third place. He's going to give nice position here for Michael Benham to inherit as well. Another look at it, up into the air, down to earth with a bump. Estre already almost in mid-air, turning the steering wheel. Now here comes the fight for fifth, and they're all lining up behind Gustavo Jackman, because then we have got Sean Balfe, Esteban Gini, Emil Lindholm, Miguel Ramos, Jody Fannin, Marco Antonelli and Jean-Luc Burbelic. They are all part of this group. The GTOpen battle, by the way, that is Mauro Ricci from Jürgen Haring and Stephen Earle. They're the top 3 in the GTOpen class. Ricci about 3 seconds clear of Haring, and then Earle a fair way adrift. Miguel Ramos still with Jody Fannin behind him. And again, the Solaris Aston Martin, a car that could feature in the second half of the race, as indeed could the Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs. They've both got very quick drivers to take over as well. So the destiny of the outcome of the race still wide open. Oh, here's a moment for Manuel Diodati. It's a big spin in the Antonelli Lamborghini. Unfortunately, Manuel keeps out of the barriers. Emil Lindholm pushing very hard in his efforts to overhaul Esteban Gini, but can't quite do it. Still the fight for fifth place continues, and Gustavo Jackman will be going to sleep tonight with visions of the Balfe Motorsport McLaren in his mirrors. It's almost a role play of, I think it was the Red Bull Ring, where Sean had the Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs all bottled up behind him in the latter stage of the race. Now that boot is on the other foot, it's the turn of Sean to apply the attacking pressure, as Crestani from Estre, 5 minutes away from the pit window opening. And really it's going to be Crestani's luxury is when he pits in. He has 5 success seconds in the pits as a result of podium finish last time out in Monza. But Thomas Biaggi, nonetheless, is going to be fed out in a very handy position here as a result of the performance of Crestani in this first phase of the race. And the fact that Fabrizio Crestani in the Orange 1 Team Lazarus Lamborghini Huracan has just been able to stretch the field, 2.7 seconds over Kevin Estre, but then it's 13 seconds already back to Duncan Tappy, so that is going to take some overhauling. Ewan Hankey, there he is in fourth, trying to chase down Tappy. And again, both Duncan Tappy and Ewan Hankey, they've got no pit handicap. For Ewan Hankey, it's Sally Ulett, Duncan Tappy, Mike Benham. But we'd anticipate that they'll both stay out fairly deep into the pit window. Duncan Tappy squirts the Garage 59 McLaren out of turn 12 into turn 13, downhill through the chicane. This the end of his 13th lap of the race. And Duncan Tappy hard at work, balances the throttle out of the final turn and then sprints along the start and finish straight. Crosses the line. Gave away another second to Fabrizio Crestani on that last lap. Then we've got Ewan Hankey, who is pretty much matching 10th for 10th the pace of Duncan Tappy before we get to the fight for 5th. Still Gustavo Jackerman from Sean Balfe. Headlights ablaze from Balfe, trying to chase the BMW towards turn 1. This is a good opportunity here for Sean Balfe, and he might go for it. Looks to the inside line. The same for Emil Lindholm just behind, but nothing doing for Sean Balfe, nothing doing either for Emil Lindholm. So as we were, Jody Fannin unable to find a way past Miguel Ramos, with Marco Antonelli still poised there in 11th. And all of these cars could come into the mix for the podium in the second phase of the race. Particularly the Antonelli Motorsport Lamborghini. There it is, with Daniel Zampieri ready to get behind the wheel. Zampieri, ever spectacular. Out of turn 5, down through turn 6, then this flick through turns 7 and 8. Spangini using all of the curb. And the track getting grippier as the day's worn on. Last night's rain had washed the track clean. Jean-Luc Burbelic in the AKKA ASP team Mercedes, the first of those two cars, as Lindholm now able to finally make the move. And Esteban Gini, does it work? No, it doesn't. The Argentine jumps straight ahead of the Finnish driver, reclaims the position. Jody Fannin, as far as we've seen through the TV pictures, hasn't yet been able to force the move on Miguel Ramos. And Ramos, like his teammate Gustavo Jackerman, totally unflappable at the wheel of the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW. Of course, just a single point this afternoon will give the Teo Martin squad the team's championship. So that's another battle to stay appraised of. It's in towards turn 1. Gini just jinks across half, covers the inside line. A flash of the headlights from Emil Lindholm. And it's going to be at the end of this lap, if not quite for this group of cars, but those behind, that the pit window is going to be open for 14 minutes. So Crestani still leads from Estre, Tappy, Hankey and Jackerman. But it's really from 5th onwards that we've got these fantastic battles. As Emil Lindholm just washes out, understeers a little bit through turn 4. Gives Esteban Gini momentary breathing space for turn 5. So through turns 7 and 8, climbing uphill towards turn 9. This fight for 5th still continues as Crestani leads. Downhill towards turn 10 again. Sean Balfe not quite close enough to Gustavo Jackerman, but Jackerman moves across, claims the apex. Then running uphill, sweeping around turn 12 into turn 13. Sean Balfe using all the road, a little bit of the curb as well. through to the end of this 15th lap of the race. Still Emil Lindholm applying the pressure to Esteban Gini, who's just not responding to it in any way. So they sprint along the start and finish straight. Lindholm just out over the curves, but keeps his right foot absolutely planted. The road falls away from them down towards turn 1. Again, Sean Bauth shows himself in Gustavo Jackermann's mirrors, but as they turn through the corner, you can see that McLaren was always a couple of car lengths too far adrift. The pit window is now open as well, so the element of strategy comes into play. Don't think we'll see anybody on this time, as Alex Moiseev in trouble in the Kaspersky Ferrari, and that is over at turn 3, I think, and which is a very quick corner. He's just into gravel trap as again Emil Lindholm pushes too hard in the Attempto Racing Lamborghini. It is at turn 3 for Alex Moiseev. We could see a safety car, because it's going to require a fair amount of bravery from marshals at one of the quickest corners and a blind corner on the track, just at the point at which the pit window opens. Now here is another look at that moment for Emil Lindholm, who wins the bet that you can drift a GT3 Lamborghini. It's climbing out of turn 11 into turn 12. Jackermann and Bauth still fighting over 5th and 6th. Alex Moiseev remains stranded over at turn 3. As we come to the end of this 16th lap of the race. The pit window open here in Barcelona, and it is Sean Bauth who comes in right at the top of the window to hand over to Phil Keane. Also in is Emil Lindholm. That is to pass over to Christian Krognes. And the Bauth Motorsport McLaren very well poised for a good result this afternoon, because Sean has been right with the front runners. He sends his pit marker flying. Also in is Miguel Ramos to pass over to Peter Schotthorst. The Teo Martin Motorsport mechanics get to work. So we're going to see this phase of the race where everything gets turned on its head. Whereas the likes of Duncan Tappy in 3rd place would anticipate are going to stay out until the latter stage of the pit window, which closes when there are 28 minutes left on the clock. So that's 11 and 3/4 minutes time. The recovery still ongoing for Alex Moiseev, but no sign of a safety car, which is good news in terms of allowing the race to play out naturally. Duncan Tappy runs downhill. Meanwhile, Com Ledegaard ready for the arrival into the pit box of Alex West. But for that first lap moment for Alex West, Ledegaard would have been in with a chance of pushing for a podium late on. As it is, it's all about still learning about what the car can do, seeing how hard they can push for tomorrow. So Peter Schotthorst emerges from the pits, as does one of the AKKA ASP Mercedes. I think that's Jerome Policant at the wheel of the 89 car. Jody found another driver to hand in to Francesco Cini. And Phil Keane has emerged, actually in and amongst this battle for the lead of the race. Here is Fabrizio Crestani, also in his Gustavo Jackermann to pass over to Fernando Mohe. So now, this is a fascinating outlap here for Phil Keane as to whether or not he can get the jump on Mohe and Jackermann, having been bottled up behind the BMW throughout really the first phase of the race. Crestani running out a little bit wide through turn 9. Still with Kevin Estre in pursuit. It's only Estre who's been able to stay anywhere near the Orange One Team Lazarus Lamborghini. But now, in and amongst a little bit of traffic, is Kevin Estre. It's one of the Kessel Ferraris that he is about to catch, and that is Alexis de Bernardi, the Luxembourgian driver. Great to see Kessel Racing back in the championship this weekend, and De Bernardi peels into the pits to hand over to the very rapid Nicky Kadai, who'll take over from him. It's across the line for Cristani, then it's Estre, then Phil Keane. Now, where is Phil relative to the progress of Fernando Moje? We'll find out through this shot. Neither Moje has gone out a long way ahead of Phil Keane, or he is going to emerge some way behind. The answer is that he's still in the pits, Fernando Moje. So that is good news for Phil Keane and Sean Balfe. They've cleared at least one of their obstacles. Oh, and that's why, because all sorts of problems for Fernando Moje, and that is a real disaster for the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW team, as Moje looks to get the car fired up and pushed underway, as Moiseev returns to the pits. Now the team can get to work trying to push the BMW down the pit lane, but essentially this drama for Moje and Jakoman, still the car's not kicking into life, hands the championship to Biaggi and Cristani, because now it's going to take massive misfortune for Cristani and Biaggi, and really everything to fall in favour of Moje and Jakoman for them to be able to get a high enough finish to be able to take the championship fight into tomorrow. So only now does Fernando Moje emerge on the track. They lost a minute through that pit stop compared to their rivals. Oh, and all is arguably not quite right, is it, with the BMW, as Moje gets up to speed, picks through turn one, but the car, just wonder if it's stuck in a high gear or something, because he's not able to pick up the pace, particularly through turn three. And I rather fear that Fernando Moje is going to be back in the pits before too long. So Fabrizio Cristani, the race leader from Kevin Estre, and then behind, headlights ablaze, is Phil Keane, but Phil not on the same lap. He's already served his pit stop, but he's showing immediately that he can run at the pace of the race leaders. Sean Balfe and Phil Keane, they are yet to win a race in the McLaren. They have had one race win this year. That came in their Ferrari 458, the very first race of the year in Estoril. Thomas Biaggi being readied in the garage as Cristani still presses on. The car bumps and moves over the curbs. Kevin Estre under no particular desire to move promptly aside and allow Phil Keane through, but Keane gets boxed up behind the Porsche through turn 7-8. You can see how much quicker the McLaren is, and with some clear air for Phil Keane, he will be able to really push on. And now, in fact, Estre runs a little bit wide coming out of turn 9, and he tries to fight it on the brakes into turn 10 with the inevitable consequence of slithering out wide. So Phil Keane able to pick his way past the Attempto Racing Porsche. Wonder if we might be seeing Kevin Estre in at the end of this lap, in fact. Only a handful of cars out on track haven't pitted in. Of course, including the race leader, Fabrizio Cristani. Oh, and a big problem there for Esteban Gini, and that looks like the rear left tyre has gone, and he's taken some bodywork with him, and cruelly for Gini, it's happened right at the start of the lap. So he's now going to have to try and nurse that car for 4.5 kilometres back to the pit stop, just as the DriveX Audi was looking well set for a good result. So Kevin Estre doesn't duck into the pits, hand over to Peter Turting. It's going to be another lap before he does that. Meanwhile, Jürgen Haring is in to hand over to Arkin Acker. So Acker gets strapped in to the Attempto Racing Porsche. Fabrizio Cristani on his 21st lap of the race. We're just over half race distance. As it stands, Cristani and Biaggi will be champions at the checkered flag. Here's another look at the tyre rubbing away at the DriveX Audi's bodywork, and that's such a pity because bits of trim get sent forth in every direction, and notwithstanding if he can make it back to the pits, unfortunately Esteban Gini damage to that car means it's going to be fairly tricky to handle late on. There's also bits of debris now all over the road coming down from turn 9 to turn 10. Fabrizio Crestani, the race leader, navigates turn 12. He's led ever since the lights went out. He's got 4 minutes before the pit window shuts. What point does he think about peeling in to pass over to Thomas Biaggi? And the answer is it's this time around. So into the pit lane for Crestani and Biaggi. It's been a wonderful day's driving for Crestani as he almost loses the car, slowing it down to the 60-kilometre pit lane speed limit at the last instant. To a halt, door open, out gets Crestani, in gets Biaggi. New Michelin tyres going on to the Lamborghini Huracan. Promotes Kevin Estre to the lead of the race. It's just Estre and Tapie and Ewan Hankey, who were yet to pit, but Hankey comes in now to pass over to Sally Yuluk. So by my reckoning, when all is said and done here, it is going to be a close run thing between whether it's Thomas Biaggi or Peter Turting who emerges with the lead of the race. Out jumps Hankey. In goes Yuluk's seat insert, and then in jumps Sally Yuluk, the TF Sports team getting to work on the car. So it's just Estre and Tapie and Mauro Ricci, the leader of the GTOpen class, who are yet to pit in. Now this is the battle between Francesco Cini and Christian Krognes. And so it's been a good stop for the Solaris Aston Martin squad because they've been able to feed Cini out ahead of Krognes on the road as Crestani. It's the pats on the back from the team, thumbs up. Really, the tension begins to mount. They navigate the debris coming out of turn 9 towards turn 10. They're both catching up to Duncan Tapie. This is the benefit of brand new Michelin tyres, of course. So Francesco Cini and Christian Krognes, when all is said and done, they're going to be fighting for about 7th or 8th place, by my reckoning. Into the pit lane now comes Kevin Estre to pass over to Peter Turting. To a halt, door open, and the well-drilled pit stop routine underway. Turting squeezes himself into the cockpit of the Attempto Racing Porsche with good reason here, with a 5-second shorter pit stop than that for Crestani and Biaggi. There's every chance they might find themselves emerging ahead of Thomas Biaggi, as Biaggi could just see into the cockpit there, fighting the wheel. Duncan Tapie also ducks into the pit lane to pass over to Mike Benham. The Garage 59 squad get to work. So we could be in for a fascinating close to this race. We'll give you the classification at the end of the next lap once they've all shuffled their way through. But Thomas Biaggi using all the road, a little bit more of it. Almost runs over the debris there on exit. Now the car that they're racing against, that's static in the pit lane, the Attempto Racing Porsche of Peter Turting, they are counting down the pit stop. I can see that car right in front of the commentary box, and Turting is on his way now. So Peter Turting is going to take lead the race here from Thomas Biaggi. But of course, the Attempto Porsche as well would get the points, because we've seen already Kevin Estre in the championship so far this season. So here is Peter Turting, who has got Fernando Monge going past him. Monge, of course, some way down the field. And here comes Mike Benham out ahead of Thomas Biaggi. Now, this is the fight for second place in the race. So Mike Benham, he's straight into the firing line. He's got Thomas Biaggi, the champion-elect, on his tail. But Benham has got absolutely no reason to jump aside here and wave the Lamborghini through, because they're battling for position. So they head through turn 4. Mike Benham has been, alongside Alex West, one of the most improved drivers in the championship as the season has gone on. They've become more and more accomplished, working with the Garage 59 squad at each and every round. And after West's fantastic performance in Monza, under pressure from, well, seemingly half the field, Benham will look to do the same, but he runs a little bit wide through turn 8, and that's the opportunity for Biaggi to challenge uphill into turn 9. And there's nothing that Benham could really do about that. He'd slithered wide, allows the Lamborghini back past, but Benham might look to challenge downhill. They've also got Marco Ciocci on their tail. Ciocci a couple of laps down, of course. And so Biaggi up ahead of Benham into second place. The race order, therefore, is Peter Turting leads. Second place is Thomas Biaggi. Third place is Mike Benham. Fourth, Sally Uluk. Fifth is Phil Keane. Sixth, Peter Schotthorst. Seventh, Jerome Policon. Eighth, Daniel Zampieri. Ninth, Francesco Cini. And 10th, Christian Krognes, with Benjamin Ricci leading the AM class from David Perel and Arkin Acker. There's your order. Now, how it's all going to play out, the next half an hour we'll see. There is Benham's moment. And for a moment, it seems as if he was destination tyre wall, but he saved it well. And Thomas Biaggi on the undercut, able to dart past. Frustration for Tim Mullen, team manager. It was going to be a big ask for Benham to keep Biaggi behind in friendly length of time, but for enjoyment of the race, it would have been very nice because it would have allowed Sally Uluk and Phil Keane and others to join in. Now, Marco Ciocci is a couple of laps down here, so Benham doesn't need to defend from him. But in the background, you saw the progress of Sally Uluk in the TF Sport Aston Martin. There is Uluk at the back of your picture, and only 3 seconds behind Sally Uluk is Phil Keane in the Balfe Motorsport McLaren. So the race well and truly live. Peter Turting leads the way, 6.5 seconds up the road ahead of Thomas Biaggi, but Turting appreciably slower than the Lamborghini through the first sector. There indeed you see the Attempto Racing Porsche. Benham doing what he can to stay with Thomas Biaggi, as Ciocci had a little bit of a look to the inside of the McLaren into turn 10. In terms of the championship, more than ample as it stands for Cristani and Biaggi to take the crown today. Through the chicane, coming to the end of the 24th lap of the race. It's not a battle for position, this, but Marco Ciocci looking to try and move past the Garage 59 McLaren. He's weaving behind him, flashing his headlights. Now here's the race leader, Peter Turting, ex-DTM racer, ex-World Touring Car Championship racer. And we always thought the Attempto Racing Porsche was going to be a potential race winner this afternoon. The lead over Biaggi is 5.9 seconds, but Biaggi was a second quicker than Turting last time around. With 24 seconds left in the race, he's got the chance to chase that down. Benham is third, Sally Uluk in fourth. Fifth is Phil Keane, who's eating into Sally Uluk's advantage at 3 seconds a lap. In fact, Keane is right with Sally Uluk. Cars 34 and 22. They are busy fighting for fourth and fifth. And then sixth place, it's Peter Schotthorst. Seventh, Jerome Policon. Eighth, Daniel Zampieri. Ninth, Christian Krognes. And 10th, Francesco Cini. Then Benjamin Ricci leads David Perel and Arkin Acker in the GTOpen class. So we stay with Peter Turting. Turting having a better lap this time around in balance to that of Thomas Biaggi. The car that's on the move is the Balfe Motorsport McLaren of Phil Keane. And Keane, I'm just looking from the commentary box window, he's bottled up behind Sally Uluk. He's not been able to find a way past the Aston Martin just yet. As out of the final turn comes the Attempto Racing Porsche of Peter Turting, the race leader. It's advantage over Thomas Biaggi. And there you see Biaggi, and it actually goes out to 5.8 seconds, so it's been a good lap there for Turting. Then we've got Biaggi second, Benham is third, and then here comes the battle for fourth. At the top of your picture, headlights ablaze, Sally Uluk with Phil Keane. anxious to make progress here, Phil Keane, because the Balfe Motorsport McLaren has got podium potential today. It's unfortunately for the drivers found itself in the company of traffic. So Phil Keane trying to fluster Sally Ulick into a mistake, but Sally, again, a driver who seems to have been quicker and more consistent at each and every event this season. Moves across, covers the line into turn 4, just runs a little bit wide on the exit. That's not going to cause him any concern. Keane might fancy a dart to the inside at turn 5. He's not close enough to the Aston Martin. Again, he tries to force the mistake from Sally Ulick. But Ulick, this is where his maturity is starting to kick in now. He just isn't making those mistakes. He's driving with remarkable consistency. As they climb out of turn 7 and 8, Phil Keane trying to force the overlap into turn 9. Again, nothing doing. Come downhill towards turn 10. Braking zone for turn 10. Probably Phil Keane's best opportunity. Again, Sally Ulick half covers the inside line. He just doesn't make life easy for Phil Keane. And he just slithers on the exit, but Keane wasn't close enough to get the undercut. He tries to force a look to the inside at turn 12. Ulick again just shuts the door towards turn 13. They get there too quickly for Phil Keane to make the move. Forces Ulick offline again, down into the chicane. Ulick, the Aston Martin, covers the inside line. But playing the long game here, Phil Keane, it means that Ulick is going to be a little bit slower through this final turn. It might give the McLaren the chance to challenge as they head down the start and finish straight. And of course, as Ulick and Keane battle, they're actually allowing Mike Benham to break away in front of them. Marco Ciocci has backed off from trying to pick his way past Mike Benham. And now becomes a little bit of a spoiler for Sally Ulick. So Peter Terting and Thomas Biaggi, they are matching each other in terms of pace in first and second. Mike Benham in third is currently a little bit quicker than this Sally Ulick and Phil Keane battle, as Ulick slowed himself and Keane last lap, busy defending. The Turkish driver again runs a little bit wide at turn 4, but it gives him the exit speed down towards turn 5. Ulick turns in early for the left-hander. Meanwhile, ventures lower down the field. That's Kiko Galbiati getting a little bit of assistance from Nicky Kadai. Swinging through turn 9. Now this battle is significant just in that it's going to give Mike Benham in third place a little bit of breathing room here, possibly enough to see him through to the flag. Again, Sally Ulick breaks deep for turn 10, but he keeps the car on the island. Phil Keane can't hustle the opening of the McLaren. He does like the run through turn 12, Phil Keane, and all this time he almost gets the overlap for turn 13. Still got 20 minutes to go here in Barcelona, the penultimate race of the International GTOpen season. Peter Terting leads the way. Thomas Biaggi in second is doing enough currently to give himself and Fabrizio Crostani the championship at the checkered flag. In third place, it's Mike Benham. We're watching the battle for fourth between Sally Ulick and Phil Keane. In sixth place, it's Peter Schottfors. Seventh, Jerome Poliquin. In fact, in sixth now, it's Jerome Poliquin. Seventh is Daniel Zampieri, and Peter Schottfors has been shuffled down into eighth place. As into turn 4, again on the brakes, just hovering on the brakes is Sally Ulick, but he's finding all the traction that he needs. Meanwhile, Marco Ciocci has closed back up to Mike Benham. And this time around is able to find a way past the McLaren driver. Now, that last lap from Benham was a 1 minute 52.1, playing a 1 minute 50.5 from Sally Ulick. So Ulick, unless he's defending really vigorously, is able to chase down Mike Benham a little bit. More bad news for Fernando Mohe and Gustavo Jackerman. They've got a 10-second penalty to be added to their time. Tim Mullen watching on as a change, and Phil Keane has found a way past Sally Ulick. So Phil Keane up into fourth position. It had a slight air of inevitability about it because Phil Keane just been that little bit quicker than Ulick, and now he's through and gone. But yeah, just to confirm, there you see the confirmation. Yakuman and Mohe, 10-second penalty. And that, I imagine, is for the car being push-started down the pit lane. And so Fernando Mohe was already in 13th place. 10 seconds added to his race time is going to see him drop to 14th. So Mike Benham in third. Has now got Phil Keane released into the open air once more to try and do something about him. Meanwhile, Thomas Biaggi's got a little bit of traffic to contend with. Arkinaka is the first of them. And Arkin, don't forget, is Peter Turting's teammate, so I can't imagine he's going to jump aside. And Thomas Biaggi doesn't really need to force this either. In fact, he can pretty much hold position exactly as he is. Not quite in station behind Arkinaka, but he can certainly take his time with the lappery. Heads down out of turn 9. He should be able to slide past into turn 10. Yeah, indeed, he gets away from the cockpit of the Porsche, and that's very fair and sensible driving from Arkinaka. He just waves the Lamborghini through. Next traffic for Biaggi to contend with will be Fernando Mohe. Meanwhile, Christian Krognes to the inside of Francesco Cini, and that is the pass for 9th place. So there's Fernando Mohe, who is now almost a whole lap down from the car that he came into today fighting in championship contention with. And unfortunately, that's just the way that racing sometimes goes. So Peter Turting leads 5.7 seconds, his advantage now over Thomas Biaggi. And this is the fight for third that's well and truly come together. The two McLarens, the Garage 59 car of Mike Benham, the Balf Motorsport car of Phil Keane. And the Balf Motorsport car has just looked really hooked up all race long. They've evidently found something that's working for them in terms of the setup. The question being, of course, if Phil Keane can find his way past Mike Benham, could he make any further progress as the move already happens through turn 3? Keane just finds the traction on the inside track and glides past Benham up into third place then for Phil Keane. 15 minutes to go. His lap times have been very similar to that of Peter Turting and Thomas Biaggi, so I'd anticipate Phil Keane will drive away from Mike Benham, but won't make much more progress. Meanwhile, Com Ledegaard is currently the quickest car on the track. His last lap is the second quickest car on the track, a 1 minute 49.5. Marco Ciocci, the quickest car, currently circulating 1 minute 48.1, and personal best lap of the race last time around. So for Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crostani, winning taking the championship with a race win would be nice to have. Is it likely? Well, 5.3 seconds is Biaggi's deficit to Peter Turting. They are getting in and amongst the traffic somewhat. Turting has been able to find a way around Fernando Mohe. That is the next challenge for Thomas Biaggi. That lap for Turting, a 1 minute 50.2. Thomas Biaggi, a 1 minute 49.7. So Biaggi able to close in clear air, half a second a lap on Peter Turting. That seems to be about the norm. But with the traffic, the gap is continuing to yo-yo, but there's certainly enough time left in the race that 5.2 seconds could be whittled away. Phil Keane in third. His lap was a 1 minute 50.3. He gave away most of that time passing Mike Benham through the first sector. No change in the Provisional Drivers' Championship, and really, even if Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crostani were to retire, such is the position of Fernando Monnier and Gustavo Jacquemin's entry, that they would not score enough points to make it an issue. Over the bumps into turn 10 for Peter Terting. Tempto Racing, Porsche, making a great entry to the series this weekend. Kevin Estrade and Terting, a very competitive driver lineup as well, and as a result, running free at the front of the field, but another half second or so given away from Terting to Biaggi so far over the course of this lap. A little bit of a wobble for Terting coming out of turn 15. So the 5.0 second gap was the gap between the pair at the end of the second sector. Biaggi headlights ablaze, punches through 4.9 seconds, so he chases down a little bit more ground. Phil Keane in third, a 1 minute 49.8, so he splits the difference between the leading group of cars. Here is Benjamin Ricci, the leader alongside Mauro Ricci of the GTOpen class in the AKK ASP Team Mercedes. And Ricci leads the class from David Perel in the Kessel racing car shared with Stephen Earle. And then Arkinaka and Jürgen Höring currently completing the GTOpen podium. Com Ledegaard chasing down Ricci, but not for position. Ledegaard seeking to unlap himself as far as possible up through the field. And Ledegaard carves through. Now in the background there you can see David Perel, so GTOpen battle is still well and truly on. Ricci being caught here by Perel, as Ledegaard navigates the chicane, leaps over the curbs. And there you see the battle between the GTOpen class leaders. So as they come onto the start and finish straight, there's a good chance here that David Perel might get the run here on Benjamin Ricci. There they come down the straight now. Headlights ablaze in the scarlet Ferrari of David Perel. And he's chasing Benjamin Ricci. They're fighting for 11th and 12th in the race overall, but this is for the GTOpen class win. The Kessel Ferrari up behind the AKKA ASP Mercedes. And Perel looks to challenge through turn 3. The Mercedes under threat from the Ferrari. Which way does Perel go? Thinks about looking to the inside, can't quite do it. Instead, just tries to force Ricci offline. And he largely succeeds in so doing. He's surely going to jump across, darts the inside at turn 5 here, and David Perel takes the lead of the GTOpen class. Beautifully judged move. You could see what he was thinking about doing, and that's exactly what he was able to pull off. So Perel leads the class in the Kessel Ferrari alongside Stephen Earle. Another look at it, sells the dummy, and by the time that Ricci's committed to the outside entry to turn 5, the Ferrari is to the inside and gone. A little bit of a lock on the brake though for David Perel into turn 10, but he's able to move across, cover the apex, just a couple of confidence dabs on the brakes as well. So here's the race leader, Peter Terting. 8 3/4 minutes remain here in Barcelona in the late afternoon sunshine. The Tempto Racing Porsche leads Thomas Biaggi by 4.3 seconds. 15 seconds behind Peter Terting is Phil Keane in the Balf Motorsport McLaren in third. Fourth is Mike Benham in the Garage 59 McLaren. Fifth, Sally Yuluk, the TF Sport Aston Martin. Sixth place is Jerome Policon in the AKKA ASP Lamborghini, Mercedes, alongside Jean-Luc Burbelique. And then it's Daniel Zampieri in 9th in the Antonelli Motorsport Lamborghini. And Peter Schottost in 8th in the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW. Christian Crognez is 9th, and Francesco Cini completes the top 10. So that is the race classification, the championship classification, pretty much unchanged. But we're going to have a great battle for second in the standings tomorrow, as Sean Balfe is going to pull level on points with Gustavo Jacquemin and Fernando Morhe. But for Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crestani, they will be willing these last 7.5 minutes away. It's another race that they're not likely to win. Although Peter Turting's pace has really slipped in the last lap. He did a 1 minute 51.1 as opposed to Biaggi with a 1 minute 50.0. But it's hard to see that Biaggi is going to risk all to win the race when he just needs to stay in second to win the championship. And you don't get to the sort of CV that Thomas Biaggi has got by risking everything unnecessarily. At the same time, Biaggi eats away at Turting's lead. He can't really help that. 3.9 seconds as they come through the second sector. So it's down to under 4 seconds. All the while, Thomas Biaggi easing away from Phil Keane, who, having got up to third, can't do an awful lot more than third. It's Peter Turting about to complete his 34th lap of the race, which he does now. Does a 1 minute 50.1, so he finds another second compared to the previous lap. It's 1 minute 49.4 from Thomas Biaggi, so he gets to now 3.5 seconds back. Here's the fight for fourth place, Mike Benham and Sally Yuluk. And they've got Nicky Kadai just behind them. Kadai in the process of unlapping himself. Driver who we used to see a lot of in the GTOpen a couple of years ago. And Kadai might fancy his chance of unlapping himself from Sally Yuluk here. Then in the background you saw Jerome Policon, and he has got the Antonelli Motorsport Lamborghini of Daniel Zampieri just behind him. So fourth through to seventh could well change between now and the flag. There you see the Mercedes and the Lamborghini, and they're getting ever closer at the rate of some 2 seconds a lap to Benham and Yuluk. Yeah, there you see Jerome Policon and Daniel Zampieri at the back of your picture. So lots to race for inside the top places. They're not fighting for the podium just at the moment, but they are fighting for results as Sally Yuluk squirts down the pad just a little bit prematurely. He tries to squeeze Kadai and has no option but to allow the Kessel Ferrari through. Nicky Kadai forces the move on Sally Yuluk, who I don't think realises this isn't for position, because instead he's got Jerome Policon in the AKKA ASP Mercedes. The Antonelli Motorsport Lamborghini of Daniel Zampieri now looming large on his tail. The Zampieri looks to make the move on Jerome Policon. Policon covers the inside line in the Mercedes. Zampieri looks for the switchback. Jerome Policon, a driver with immense experience in GT and sports car racing under his belt. It's not going to make this easy for Zampieri, particularly as they can see Sally Yuluk ahead of them, all of which buys a little bit of fresh air for Mike Benham in fourth. But the fight for fifth now swings through the final turn. 4 minutes left on the clock. Aston Martin leads Mercedes, leads Lamborghini down the start and finish straight. And Daniel Zampieri very close to the Mercedes and jumps out now, and Zampieri's going to go for the place and should go through past Jerome Policon. He squeezes out the Mercedes, and Zampieri in the Antonelli Motorsport Lamborghini up into sixth. How long before he's chasing Sally Yuluk for fifth? Not too long at all. And Zampieri, seen him time and time again work wonders in the International GTOpen. And that was just the textbook Barcelona move to the inside. Policon wanted to shut the door. Zampieri held his nerve. And eventually the Frenchman had to concede to Daniel Zampieri. Here is Thomas Biaggi. 2.8 seconds, his deficit now to Peter Turting. So this rate, Zampieri, or rather Biaggi, is going to be with Turting by the end of the race. There you see Turting through the chicane. It's got Marco Ciocci running with him for company here, Thomas Biaggi, which is probably not going to help matters. So 2 3/4 minutes left on the clock. So this is to start the penultimate lap of the race. Peter Terting leads by 2.9 seconds from Thomas Biaggi. Marco Ciocci, he's some 5 laps down, so unlapping himself from Thomas Biaggi. He's not going to achieve a huge amount here. But for Peter Terting, that last lap was a 1 minute 50.1. For Biaggi, it was a 1 minute 50.0. Kevin Estre, all smiles on the pit wall. I think he knows that 2.9 seconds is a defensible buffer. Meanwhile, Sally Yuluk and Daniel Zampieri go wheel to wheel towards first turn 1. Yuluk to the inside, Zampieri to the outside. Daniel Zampieri isn't going to concede this, but nor is Sally Yuluk, and Yuluk defends beautifully. But Zampieri onto terms as they climb up the hill towards turn 3. And Zampieri looks for the switchback as Yuluk doesn't run wide. He doesn't leave the space for the Antonelli Lamborghini, but Biaggi makes some as they head towards turn 4. It's still side-by-side stuff. Brilliant racing. And finally, Daniel Zampieri gets his nose in front of Sally Yuluk and up into 5th position. Immediately, the Turkish driver is under threat from Jerome Polincot as Mike Benham finds himself unlapped by Nicky Kadai. And now, Daniel Zampieri, well, it's a big ask over a lap and a half to chase down Mike Benham. Jerome Polincot, meanwhile, has been able to pick his way past Sally Yuluk and up into 6th place there for Polincot. So this battle coming together beautifully in the latter stages. The front of the field, meanwhile, Peter Terting's had a very good lap relative to that of Thomas Biaggi and has re-extended his lead. And Terting goes through now to start the final lap of the race. In the growing dusk here in Barcelona, Terting leads Biaggi. In 3rd place, it is Phil Keane. Peter Terting and Kevin Estre have been the only driver pairing to be able to consistently take the fight in terms of pace to Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Cristani this afternoon. They were able to get the undercut through the pit stop. And so the Attempto Racing Porsche leads through the final lap. But for Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Cristani, they are just a handful of turns now away from being the 2016 International GTOpen champions. Terting has got Ciocci about to invite himself onto his tail. Marco Ciocci very keen to get another lap out of this race and certainly putting a marker down in terms of tomorrow's race. But for now, Terting flashing his headlights. He has got Benjamin Ricci just ahead of him. Second in the GTAM class, Ricci, as Terting climbs out of turn 11 into turn 12. Thomas Biaggi is not close enough to cause Terting any concern here. Peter Terting doesn't need to force this move. Downhill into the chicane for the final time. And Peter Terting and Kevin Estre in the Attempto Racing Porsche are going to win here in Barcelona as they head through the final turn. Terting takes the checkered flag and victory for Attempto Racing as Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Cristani are the 2016 International GTOpen champions. They finished 2nd in the race, but Biaggi and Cristani, they have taken the championship here in Barcelona. They have driven magnificently all season long. The orange one, Team Lazarus Lamborghini, has been perfectly prepared, and they take the championship with a race to spare. Phil Keane and Sean Balfe claim 3rd, and then on the last lap, Daniel Zampieri has jumped up to 4th. So Zampieri and Antonelli in 4th, Benham and Tappi in 5th, from Polincot and Bobalik in 6th. Krognes has also jumped Sally Yuluk on the last lap to take 7th. A lively race, plenty of dicing throughout the field, but for Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Cristani, that has been the job perfectly done as Cristani celebrates with the team on the pit wall. Emotional scenes to follow, no doubt, in Parc Ferme. And they have been there or thereabouts all year, but it was the consistency and just regular podium finishes through the second half of the season which has really propelled Cristani and Biaggi to the title this year. So this is a lap to savour for Thomas Biaggi, so that to enjoy as well for Peter Terting. Winning the race, Thomas Biaggi, multiple World GT champion, he can now add the International GTOpen crown to that CV. The marshals applaud Biaggi as he heads around the lap towards Parc Fermé. Look then at the final classification. Esther and Terting taking the win from Biaggi and Cristani in second. Sean Balfe and Phil Keane to complete the podium ahead of Zampieri and Antonelli. Benham and Tapia fine fifth from Jean-Luc Berblique and Jerome Policon. Then Lindholm and Krognes with David Perel and Stephen Earle. They win the GTAM class for Kessel Racing ahead of the Ricci's, and then Acker and Herring to complete the GTAM podium. A look then at the championship. Cristani and Biaggi, an insurmountable lead, but Balfe now tied on points with Monhet and Jackerman, so that should be worth watching tomorrow. Peter Terting rolls to a halt in Parc Fermé. He jumps out to celebrate with the Attempto Racing team and a handshake with Kevin Estre. Meanwhile, Fabrizio Cristani opens the door to greet Thomas Biaggi. They arrive in Parc Fermé as champions and celebrate here in Barcelona. Overjoyed drivers, Biaggi and Cristani, the 2016 champions. All smiles in Parc Fermé. Estre and Terting go to celebrate with the Attempto Racing team.
Thank you, Kevin.
Hugely enjoyable race here in Barcelona. We got the battling through the field, we got the championship tension, and we have had our champions crowned for Biaggi and Cristani. As congratulations are proffered all around. Thomas Biaggi removes his helmet. All smiles alongside Fabrizio Cristani.
Aber wir wollten nicht. Das hätte er sagen sollen. Ja, wir wollten und dann wollten wir nicht.
Peter Terting, Kevin Estre, very nice victory with the Porsche. How was it, Kevin, at the beginning?
I had a really good start. I tried to follow the Lamborghini, but they were a bit quicker than me. But he did some small mistakes, and with the traffic, I could stay in contact. And then towards the end of my stint, the tires started to be really, really bad, so I lost a lot of grip, and we decided to pit maybe one lap early than we planned. The pit stop went perfectly. We had no margin at all on the pit exit, so that was nice. And then Peter did a mega job to hold the first place, and you know, it's really nice to come here with the Porsche and win. I'm really happy for the team because they had a hard year, and it's really good for Attempto and for Porsche.
And Peter, back to a big podium, must be happy.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I mean, I had a really good teammate. Kevin does a fantastic job. He knows the car pretty well. For me, it was the first time to work with this team, and also the first time on this car. I'm back on the big cars. I'm very happy. I have to work a little bit on myself to can keep the speed of Kevin. But still, mega. We got the victory.
Well done, guys. All right. Here. Whoops. Togliti l'occhiale che...
In inglese,
sì. Fabrizio Crestani, Thomas Biaggi, it's done. Champions. How you feel?
But still, I can't believe it. We were working hard, and for achieving that result still is a dream for me. And I have to thank all the team in Orange One, Lazarus, Fabrizio, all the crew, Lamborghini, all the guys, all the sponsors have been fantastic so far in this season.
Fabrizio, super stint, Super Bowl, and perfect race here.
Yeah, it's been a great season. Me and Thomas always working better and better, race after race. I have to thank Tancredi, Lazarus. I have to thank my main sponsor, Daiko Wendig. I have to thank Lamborghini, who send us all the engineers, to help us and take the best out of this beautiful car. So it's a great feeling. It's the first championship for me, and winning with Thomas, it's a great satisfaction.
Well done. We have to rush to the podium.
Thank you, guys.
Our delighted 2016 champions, Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crestani for Orange One Team Lazarus Lamborghini. Let's take a look back at the best of the race then. And off the line, it was Crestani who got the jump perfectly as Ewan Hankey was swamped by those around him, in particular Kevin Estre and Duncan Tappy able to get the jump on the Aston Martin as they made it through the opening couple of turns. Gustavo Jackermann also fast starting, elbowed aside Hankey during the first lap. Wasn't too long, however, before Hankey was able to pick his way back ahead of Gustavo Jackermann. The seesaw battle as disappointment for Esteban Gini in the DriveX Audi. That puncture just at the start of the lap, putting him out of the race. Post pit stops, Mike Benham fell out in second place, but that small mistake at turn 8 allowed Biaggi to move through up into second place and off into pursuit of Peter Turting. Meanwhile, Christian Krognes was busy doing battle with Francesco Cini, as eventually the Norwegian driver would finish up in 7th place. Phil Keane was on a charge and he was able to move clear of Benham and up into 3rd position. Great battle as well for the GTM honours, David Perel making that move on Benjamin Ricci to give he and Stephen Earle the win. Late on, Daniel Zampieri was on a charge in the Antonelli Lamborghini, moving clear first of all of Jerome Policot and then later Mike Benham. But it was a victory for Peter Turting and Kevin Estre, but second place was enough to give Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crestani the 2016 championship, with Phil Keane and Sean Balfe completing the podium. Joyous scenes as a result in Parc Fermé. Podium celebrations about to get underway as the light begins to fade in the late afternoon here in Barcelona. The applause from the Balfe Motorsport mechanics tells you that their drivers, Sean Balfe and Phil Keane, are up onto the rostrum. Runners-up, but championship winners, Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crestani, celebrating as they take their place on the podium. Receive the congratulations of Sean Balfe and Phil Keane. Kevin Estre and Peter Turting to the top step of the rostrum for Attempto Racing. So the German national anthem for Attempto Racing, Peter Turting and Kevin Estre winners here in Barcelona. Don't forget, the final race of the season is tomorrow at 2:10 Central European time, and that's going to be well worth watching because Sean Balfe and Phil Keane could still yet snatch second in the championship, but the title has been decided in favour of Fabrizio Cristani and Thomas Biaggi. Can they seal the season with a victory? For Kevin Estre and Peter Turting, very fine drive, well-managed race, and they celebrate on the top step of the rostrum in Barcelona. It's been a fantastic race, a dramatic championship battle as well, but it has ended with Fabrizio Cristani and Thomas Biaggi crowned as our 2016 champions. We have still got tomorrow's race to look forward to, but as the champagne flies on the podium in Barcelona, it's time for me, Ben Evans, to say goodbye, and we'll see you tomorrow for the season finale. Well, momentarily we will turn our attention to the GTOpen podium because, again, that was a fantastically contested race today. And again, more success for Attempto Racing because third place for Jürgen Hering and Arkin Acker. So they take their place, third step on the rostrum, to the applause of the team. Runners-up were Benjamin and Mauro Ricci in the AKKA ASP team Mercedes. And then our class winners, Stephen Earle and David Perel for Kessel Racing after that great move late on from Perel. And doesn't Stephen Earle enjoy that? So the Swiss national anthem for Kessel Racing, and they're joined by the team principal, Ronnie Kessel, on the podium as we first of all get the presentations for Jürgen Hering and Arkin Acker. Say thank you to the Attempto Racing team, Benjamin and Mauro Ricci, runners-up in the GTOpen class. And class victors David Perel and Stephen Earle. Great performance from the pair of them, and they enjoy their moment on the top step of the rostrum in Barcelona. Plenty to celebrate. They thank the Kessel Racing team, who are the top team in the GTOpen class. So time to start the celebrations with the champagne on the GTOpen podium here in Barcelona, and we will be back tomorrow for the season finale.